Thank you for joining another edition of AARP Foundation Experience Corps in your community. My name is O.S. Owen, and I'll be your host. And today we have some special folks in our studio today. We have Greg Brown, the branch director of Chicago, and we have the lovely Jamila Thacker, the assistant program manager of the Experience Corps program in Evanston, Indiana. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you, OS.
Thank you.
As we talk today, we're going to talk more about Experience Corps, not just in Chicago, but one of our affiliates in Evansville. For this program is in 22 other locations throughout the United States, and we are all a collaborative, and we share information. Greg, let's get this thing started. First of all, tell our viewing audience, what is Experience Corps?
Well, like you mentioned a moment ago, Experience Corp is a nationwide movement. We do tutoring and mentoring, and we train and recruit people over the age of 50 to go back into the public schools and work with students kindergarten to third grade. And actually, I have a real-time correction for you. Experience Corp is in 30 sites around the country,
30?
with our newest site being Atlanta, Georgia, but Chicago being one of our biggest programs in the country. We partner with 30 schools around the city of Chicago. We have close to 170 volunteers in our program, and we're in communities all over the city: North Lawndale, Englewood, Auburn Gresham, Bronzeville, as well as the far north Lakeshore and the far southeast side. So it is truly a community movement that we have here in Chicago.
Okay, so now this Experience Corps, and correct me if I'm wrong, we reach out to those that are 50 and over to bring their skills in. Why 50 and over?
Well, you want to?
Joel?
I can take the initial stab
Okay,
at that. Well, we're the AARP Foundation, and we believe in making sure that people stay connected and valued as they get older.
Yes.
Experience Corp allows them to bring their experience, whether they've had successful careers, raised successful families, or just done great things in their life. We want them to bring that experience back to the classroom and help some of these young people through tutoring as well as mentorship. So we draw the line at 50 simply because, we're the AARP Foundation, but we want people to understand that this is intergenerational. The tutor may be 50, and the child may be a kindergartner, but you have the parent, you have the teacher, you have the principal, you have the AARP staff, and so there's a lot of intergenerational connection there.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that about AARP as far as the 50 and up, I believe that AARP's initiatives also is the health and mental wellness of the senior volunteer, the person who's retired. They bring a lot of things more than just being a tutor volunteer. They are also, they are mentor, but they can go far beyond that because sometimes children place identities that are familiar. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they might familiarize that this is like my grandfather, this is like my grandmother, and they might not have that at home. So that does fill an intergenerational gap, and I think that that's very important. Not to mention, the mental and physical benefits that the volunteer also incurs from just mentoring, the feeling of, fulfillment, self-worth. They're getting up, they're doing something.
To be needed, yes.
To be needed, yeah. So I really like the psychological benefits as well.
And from what you both say, who would be best to benefit from someone's life experience?
That's right.
They've raised families, they've had successful careers. Who would these little children, kindergartners, first graders, second graders, and third graders could benefit from all of that experience? Now, how powerful is that?
Yeah, as part of our mission, two things need to happen with Experience Corp. Students need to succeed academically. We want these young people to be reading on grade level by third grade. And another thing needs to happen, that is our volunteer tutors need to thrive in their positions as volunteers. And that, of course, relates to the physical and mental benefits. But what it really boils down to is people want to give back to the community. They want to do it in a real way. And one of the truest ways is helping these young people get started with a successful life, just as the mentor and tutor has had.
Now, you mentioned something that kind of struck me. Third grade. Why third grade? I mean, what's the third grade deadline? Is it the cutoff? Is it the transition? Why is third grade so important?
No, it's real. It's real. That is, the research has shown us that third grade is the earliest indicator of what this child will do in 8th grade, which becomes the indicator of what they'll do in high school and persist through college or persist through a career. So we're trying to intervene and help these young scholars at the earliest possible intervention that we can. And so third grade is that indicator.
So now, I've watched some of these students in the classroom, and I realized that the students or the scholars who were labeled as the bad scholars, well, what it was is that it wasn't that they were bad, it's that they were challenged in reading, and their confidence wasn't as high as it could have been. So instead of them saying, the class going to clown me, well, I'm going to clown them, and takes the pressure off of them. However, they get labeled as the bad person. That's not the case here. And so with the Experience Corps, and I've read some of the work, what this program has done has built the confidence, the courage, and the skills in these young scholars for them able to be readers. So now we talk about, this program does fluency. What's fluency? Can you answer that for us?
Well, fluency, when I observe and I've seen many volunteers, while they are tutoring, is basically being fluent when you read. So instead of what we used to do was do pronunciations and things, we just reiterate the word to the student. So say we see the word intelligent. Well, they might struggle and say intel. We'll just say that word is intelligent. And we do that and we pronounce it because, for one thing, we're modeling how you're supposed to say the word, the pronunciation of the word. And then the fluency comes when several words go in order, and then there's the flow and consistency and concise. Which brings me to a little bit of our talk today. One thing that Experience Corps tutors also support and help with is when that student becomes more of a fluent reader, they also are good. We set them up for critical thinking.
Yep.
That was a good point that me and Greg was having today. He was discussing that, and he made a very valid point. And I think that's really a good thing to point out there, because if you cannot be a critical thinker, you cannot think critically to solve problems. And what I mean about solving problems, I mean as far as in your life, when they do reading comprehension, that's a big thing about reading. Like when you read, you want the student to be able to comprehend. If they can't read that sentence and that whole paragraph fluently and accurately, then they wouldn't be able to comprehend what that body of paragraph is saying to answer questions and infer.
I agree, and I would also add that fluency is basically what we call conversational reading. We want our young people to be able to read at a level where it sounds like they're having a conversation. Because we know when they read at that pace, that comprehension is happening, that vocabulary is being built, that phonics is being addressed, that all of those components of reading is happening. And so that's why our tutors, and you don't have to be a teacher to do this.
Say that again.
You don't have to be a teacher. You don't have to be a principal. You don't have to be a network chief or any type of professional. You bring your experience to Experience Corp, and we will train and support you. Very basic things on how to help these young people become fluent readers. Now, you mentioned the behavior issues that some of our students have.
Yes.
Some students act out because they don't want to be called on. They can't read. And so when we help our students become better readers, it helps build their confidence, not just in reading and literature, but in other areas of education, and as well as throughout their home life. So we have students, when we tutor them, we make sure that they keep the books that they complete. They take those books home. Their younger brothers and sisters want to read those books. Their other classmates want to be a part of the program. And so our tutor mentors really form a bond with these students. They're in the school 2 days a week for 2 hours a day during the school day. And so they form these relationships with the students. and they help them become more fluent readers. And in that process, we see a metamorphosis of this student. And guess what? A metamorphosis of the tutor also.
Excellent. If you're just tuning in, we are here with Greg Brown and Jamaica Thacker of the AARP Foundation Experience Corps. We are constantly looking for volunteers. You can reach us at 312-660-8655. We're looking out for those that are 50 and over who have the desire and the interest to be tutors and mentors for kindergartners, first graders, second graders, and third graders in the Chicago Public Schools, and also now in Evansville, Indiana. Now, what does it take to be a tutor? Because we've got folks in our listening audience out there and our viewing audience out there who would be interested in being tutors. What's the requirement for being a tutor?
Yeah, let's just keep it simple. So if you're over the age of 50,
You have to be over the age of 50.
You have to
We
be
are
over-
AARP, right? So,
Sure.
okay.
over the age of 50 with a high school diploma or a GED,
That's it, high school diploma, GED.
okay?
Okay.
Be willing to participate in our training. We do a pre-service training, so before you go into the classroom, we're going to train you, and then we have trainings throughout the year. So we have about 20 to 24 hours of training.
Okay.
And of course, you have to pass the background checks. We're working with young students, and we want to make sure that they remain safe in their environment. So outside of that, I think it's the biggest requirement that we have, OS, and that is you have to really want to make a difference and help these young people. So just to keep it simple, that's what you need, and if you have that, we can train and support you to become a rock star in terms of tutoring and mentoring these young people. Let me add something to that. We, as adults, talk a lot about what these kids are doing and are not doing.
Yes.
We talk, we crack jokes, we shake our head, but let's actually get something done. Let's do something. Become a tutor, become a mentor. It's not hard. We can help you do that as long as you're over 50 and you meet the simple requirements that we have.
Okay. So now, let me ask you this. To put it simply, our students, they come to school. Some of them have a 30,000 word deficit or even more. How does that happen? I mean, you think you're going to go to school to learn. However, we have students that are coming to school that aren't ready to be in school. How does that happen?
So that's real, and that's an issue that we see, especially in our poor neighborhoods and our poor students. They have a word deficit, but with our tutors, we train them in a way to help those students with sight words to help build their vocabulary. We even have some students that we have to break it down and really revisit their ABCs with them. The cool thing about young students is that once they get that momentum, they accelerate and they catch up fairly quickly. So I've seen instances of students in second grade that were 2 years behind in reading. In second grade, 2 years behind. That means they barely had the building blocks. But by the end of third grade, they're reading above grade level.
So this program is hopeful. This program is helpful. This program is turning the time. It's, in fact, allowing young scholars to be young scholars.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I do believe that the program is very helpful, but it's going to take a group effort. And that's why our tutor volunteers go in as a support system for the teachers, and they are greatly appreciated as well. But now the teachers also impact the child too.
Absolutely.
And then, at home, it does have to begin at home, of course. We have to have the parents involved as well. So as a group, everyone can work together collectively to help, the student grow, become more of a fluent reader, and become better in education and academically inclined all the way around. Like he said, Greg said, there's literature out there that when the students are not reading at grade level about the fourth grade, they're less likely to graduate from high school. They're more likely to become incarcerated, make bad choices and poor decisions, and of course, make less money. As far as when they get out of school, they don't even challenge to go to college. They're not even challenged to go to college. So, if you hit them at that age, from kindergarten to third grade, that's the most important time in their lives. That's when, because I like to think of a mind as a book to be ready to be written in. So I always considered my mind whenever knowledge is pouring in. So those students are like sponges. They're going to absorb all the information that you give them, whether it's mentoring, whether it's literacy, reading skills, reading fluently. And not only that, you got to remember, reading is a key component in learning. You have to know how to read to read math problems, and those word problems can be challenging as well. They're going to come up against all that in the future, but see how reading and improving their reading skills can help combat that? You see
I
what I'm
see.
saying?
And can I touch on another benefit? I know we've spent quite a bit of time talking about the students, and that is the sexy part of our work. Is helping young people become great. But learning is a two-way street, and so our tutors learn a lot from our students. They're really gratified in seeing the students grow. But they also get health and psychological benefits from working with these young people. They tell me, I've had tutors tell me, Greg, this has restored my sense of purpose. It's keeping me alive, not keeping me breathing. It's giving me a new lease on my retired life. I can only go to lunch and brunch so many times a week. But working with these young people has really brought me back to life.
Give me a story.
That is true.
I know you
That
got a
is true.
story. Give me a story.
I got it. It shouts out to our volunteers in Chicagoland. You all do an amazing job. And I'll give you a quick story. I had one volunteer. She retired from corporate America. This lady was always dressed to the nine, always sharp as she could be. And when she retired, she had this wonderful wardrobe. And she said, I don't feel like myself. I don't have a reason to get dressed up and go out. Experience Corp gave her that platform. So now she can get sharp and she can see her students 2 or 3 days a week. And she can feel like herself again.
Okay, so now we talked about the students, some of the volunteers. What are the perks for the volunteers? What are the gratification for the volunteers? What do they really get out of this?
Well, they get basically a lot of what Greg just mentioned. There's a lot of health benefits that come from this, psychologically, mentally. I mean, you name it. I mean, there's even been studies on they have more movement, just them going out and getting up every day instead of just staying in the house.
Well, we are social, so we have to be engaged. And
Yes.
conversation is a good way to engage.
I'll tell you, even another benefit is, I mentioned that we have almost 170 volunteers in the Chicagoland area.
Yes.
It's probably 50 or 60 down in Evansville. And across the country, we have thousands of volunteers. What we have is a community of people. They form this social network. So, on Fridays when they're not tutoring, they're hanging out together for coffee and conversation.
Yes.
With the AARP Foundation. They're in our trainings together. They're in our end of the school year parties. And they're also interacting with each other. Sometimes we'll get them together and say, well, all the third grade tutors, let's get together and share our experience. So you start forming bonds and friendships just among this community.
Well, and that's fighting towards social isolation. If you didn't
Yes,
belong to a
yes,
strong church
yes.
family or a fraternity or sorority, as life transitions, you could find yourself alone. And with these
That's
types of
exactly
outlets, for us to stay connected, to stay social, and especially as we age, we lose the ability to drive ourselves, and we can kind of feel isolated. So I really think that this program, the benefits are for the students. They get someone who cares, and just to have someone just to believe a little bit in you. And you don't have to make them yours. A father or a mother, it's a father and mother to all children. And then the teachers, they get somebody in there to assist, to kind of help them to, what they call it, shrink in their classroom.
It's so real that our program in Chicago started in 2013. It's 2019. So that means the third graders and the second graders that we initially tutored, they're about to graduate. They're inviting our tutors to their graduation.
Is that right?
Along with their teacher and their parents.
Excellent.
So, this mentor relationship that our tutors form with these students, it's a real relationship. And you remember your coaches and your tutors and your mentors
Yes.
just as much as you remember your teachers
Yes.
and your friends.
You know,
And in Evansville, AARP Foundation Experience Corps has actually existed, and tutor volunteers have been serving in the schools for 10 years.
was that right?
Yes, we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary, and it was huge. Because we do have a host agency, and Carver Community Organization is our host agency, and they're big on, elementary school children as far as providing child care and education as well. So we have been around for a very, very long time serving in those communities that we still serve today.
Well, then, when did Experience Corps become part of AARP?
So now you want to get into some real history.
Well, I mean,
So
history is...
Experience Corp has been in existence since 1999. Coincidentally, that's the year my daughter's 21 now, so they've been around as long as my daughter has been around. And it started predominantly on the East Coast, but it's grown gradually over the country. And Experience Corp became a part of the AARP Foundation in 2003. So there's a lot of history there. I'll say also that our volunteers throughout the country, and especially in Chicago, they bring their experiences with them to
Their
the
life
classroom.
experiences, yes.
Half our volunteers are retired teachers. The other half come from all walks of life. Cooks, engineers, artists. And they bring that experience to the classroom, and it helps not only the student, but it helps the teacher. The teacher, often the teachers tap into our tutors for advice about careers, about life, and all of those things.
I've noticed that when our volunteers are in school, it has a certain magical effect. And I even noticed that when men come into the school, it affects the whole entire school. Not just the students, the teacher, but the security, the staff, the maintenance, the whole school. There's men in the school, there's men in the school. What can we do, or what can you tell our viewing audience about becoming a volunteer? We need you, we need the men, we need the women. What can you say to them? Please, look into our camera and tell our viewing audience, those that want to volunteer, what they should do and why they should do it.
Well, Chicago, I issue you a challenge. If you're over the age of 50, you have a high school diploma, and you can train and pass our background check, and you love to help the community and you love to help students, then contact the AARP Foundation Experience Corp and become a tutor and become a mentor. Help change a child's life. Help transform yourself as a lifelong learner. And we'll support you, and we'll train you, and you'll become a part of our community.
That's excellent.
Okay, give me your pitch. Come on.
Well, we are always looking for volunteers. We're always
Yes.
looking a way to expand our population. We really appreciate anyone who wants to come and commit, because commitment is a huge part of becoming a, AARP Foundation Experience Corps tutor, volunteer. And, when you sign up for it, you're signing up for so many different things.
Yes.
And if you want all those things and all those benefits that we talked about, the impact a child's life forever, not just at that time, that child will never forget you. Never forget your impact. Never forget that you sat there with them day in, day out for the hours that you did and volunteered and helped them learn to read more fluently. And not only that, the benefits that you will receive from becoming a volunteer is very rewarding. So if you want to be rewarded and enhance your self-worth, become a volunteer.
And it's spending, how are you spending your time? Spending your time engaging, encouraging, and motivating these young people to be the best version of themselves. Spending your time in making a difference. The greatest gift that we have is our time. Money and time are both spent the same way. The way we spend our money is how we spend our time. How are you spending your time? Our tutors are spending their time changing the world, making a difference. We invite you to join us, and you can reach us at 312-660-8655, 312-660-8655, and find out more ways how you can join and become a tutor with us. And we can share that information for those that are in the Evansville, Indiana. And even if you visit there, you have family, you have friends, let folks know that this wonderful opportunity is out here to make a difference. With that saying, thank you so much for joining us at the AARP Foundation in your community. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our superstar producer, the Black Butterfly. He's been on the case. He pulled all this together. We want to thank him. We want to thank Greg Brown, our branch director. We want to thank Jamila Thatcher for coming in from Indiana to share this with us. And please, please, remember, how are you spending your time? Until next time, bye now.